It was mid-June, the weather hot and stormy. There were reports of hayrick fires, not the result of arson by discontented farm workers, but caused by lightning striking the tinder-dry hay. Reverend Wilkins, Reverend Incumbent of Wicks in north-east Essex, heard about William Constable's death on the day he died, and a day or so later his sister, Mary May, went to see Wilkins about arranging the funeral. She said that William needed to be buried as soon as possible, as he was a very bad corpse. It would not have been pleasant to have a body in their cramped cottage in the warm weather. William received a pauper's burial on Wednesday the 14th of June. Reverend Wilkins asked Mary what her brother's real name was. He had always known him as an alias, Spratty Watts. He asked Mary for her brother's age, and she said that he had been 38, which is what she had told the burial club. Wilkins said he thought he was older than that, but Mary insisted, even when Wilkins suggested that she meant 48 instead. She said, "No, 38, I must know, for I am but 29. Wilkins gave her a certificate of the burial at her request. Nearly 2 weeks later, Mary called on Wilkins again, asking for a favour. She told him that she needed a certificate from him, stating that her brother had been in good health a fortnight before his death. Wilkins refused, telling her she must go to the doctor for one. She pressed him, saying others would corroborate that he had been well. Wilkins asked what she needed it for, so Mary showed him a letter from the secretary of the burial club. They refused to pay out unless Mary gave good evidence that her brother was healthy at the time she had signed him up. "But this money does not belong to you," Wilkins said. "It belongs to your husband." Mary replied, "Constable's got a son." Wilkins' riposte was, "He's illegitimate and cannot inherit it." Wilkins repeated that the burial club money would have to belong to Mary's husband, but she said, "My husband knows nothing about it. I put him in the club myself." Wilkins insisted that because William had been buried by the parish, it was the parish itself that had a claim to the money. Wilkins decided it was time to involve Inspector Raisin. The policeman visited Mary, and after confirming that she had entered her brother in the burial club, he said to her, "I understand that you can't get the money." Raisin offered to investigate for her, asking Mary to tell him about William's health. She told him that William drove some sheep on the day he fell ill, and that she gave him ginger beer and a biscuit as he set off. Raisin asked if the ginger beer had been sour and turned his stomach, but Mary said, "No, it wasn't that, for he wasn't sick, and that my neighbour knows." She continually denied to Raisin that her brother had vomited at all. Presumably thinking he could convince the burial club that William hadn't been ill, she said, "Yes, and you'll put it down on that paper that you consider he was in his usual health at the time he was taken." She added, "Poor old soul, I miss him everywhere, for he never gave me an angry word in his life, and my neighbour Mrs. Faint knows." Raisin said he would go and speak to Mrs. Faint, but Mary immediately rose from her chair and said she would fetch her. "Oh no," Raisin replied, "I'll go myself, and then the club will think there's no smuggling in it." It is interesting that smuggling was a slang term for underhand behaviour at this time, reflecting how common that illegal activity was along the Essex coast. Mrs. Faint told the inspector that she thought William had been well too, and on returning to Mary with this news, Raisin asked her again, "Then you were sure, Mrs. May, he was not sick at all?" "Oh no, that he was not." She told Raisin about some beer she had served up for her brother when he complained of feeling ill, that she had boiled it up with an egg and put some nutmeg in it. Raisin asked Mary if she had brought anything from Harwich when she'd gone to sign her brother up. "As the club people say he was not well at the time you entered him, did you get any powders or pills for him?" "Oh, law, Mr. Raisin," Mary replied. "You think I got something and gave him and killed him. I know that's what you think. Poor old soul, I never hurt a hair on his head. He was the only friend I had in the world." Wilkins and Raisin went to Harwich to find out more about the burial club and the circumstances under which Mary had entered her brother. It seems like something from the Grantchester mysteries or Father Dowling Investigates, the local vicar teaming up with a police inspector. But Wilkins' involvement is explained by the pastoral role a minister has in their local community. Wilkins' energetic involvement with Mary May's case, which he seems to have engaged with on a personal and emotional level, confirms a local paper's later view of him as a somewhat eccentric clergyman. Charles Tweed was a baker who lived at Bradfield, about 2 miles northwest of Wicks. He would later claim that Mary had approached him saying, "Charlie, I've got into a muddle and I want you to help me out. It is not money that I want, but they say old Watts has been poisoned and they're going to take up his body." She asked Tweed to say that he had seen her brother drink from a bottle in a field and hadn't been well since. Tweed was reluctant, but Mary had said, "Pray do, for the sake of my poor children, for if anything happens that will clear me." So Tweed did as Mary had asked and spread the story at public houses around Wicks. On the 29th of June, Raisin arrived again at May's cottage with Constable Empson and told Mary that there was to be an inquest into her brother's death as there was suspicion surrounding it. He asked her to attend and Mary said, "Oh, he told me he found a bottle as he was going up a field and drank out of it and had never been well since, and if there's anything found in him, I didn't give it him." She added in a low voice, "As true as God, child, he would have hung himself one day not long ago if it hadn't been for me. He took a line, went up in the field, and I ran after him." Raisin asked her how long ago that had happened, and she answered, 2 months. "I wish he had hung himself, and if I'd known I was going to get into this trouble, I would have let him."